Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we will cover how trainees can make hypertrophy training more effective by individualizing lifting technique. First and foremost, let's cover what exactly we mean when referring to individualization. Individualization simply refers to altering technique in a way that makes it most effective for the individual trainee. So while we have covered the general principles of effective technique for hypertrophy training in previous videos, trainees still need to find what technique is most effective specifically for themselves. Individualization may only account for a very small portion of technique variation between trainees, but it still may make a significant difference over time. Technique individualization is based on a number of different factors. Some of these are entirely unmodifiable, meaning they cannot be changed, while others are modifiable. Let's now cover the factors which influence individual variation for hypertrophy technique. The first is muscle anatomy. Although we all have the same general anatomy for each muscle group, there is certainly some individual differences between trainees. Factors such as origin and insertion points, fiber type composition, and muscle fiber orientation can all differ slightly between each person. Therefore, slight alterations to lifting technique may provide a better or worse hypertrophic stimulus for certain trainees. For example, the muscle fiber orientation of someone's pec fibers may make certain pressing positions more or less favorable to hit the chest. We can never really know the exact anatomical structure of each individual muscle group because obviously the muscles are located underneath the skin and fat. However, we should simply understand that anatomical differences exist between individuals and that we should experiment with different techniques. You may find that certain techniques provide a better mind-muscle connection, intra-session muscle pump, and muscle soreness the following day. These can be used as indicators to signify more or less effective technique. The next factor to consider is bone structure. This is another unmodifiable anatomical factor, but it is much more obvious to see than muscle anatomy. Bone structure refers to the size and length of different bones and joints in the body. This can vary quite significantly from person to person and will likely influence lifting technique to some extent. For example, a trainee with long femurs may find it difficult to squat with a very upright torso to hit the quads, compared with another trainee who has short femurs. Instead, they may have to lean forward more or simply just select a different exercise that is better suited to their bone structure. The next factor which may influence lifting technique is injury history. Injury history may cause some techniques to be painful for them or to develop joint irritation over time. If this is the case, technique will need to be altered or exercise selection needs to be changed to avoid long-term injury. Trainees should find a technique or exercise that allows them to lift pain-free or with minimal joint discomfort. This may involve avoiding a certain range of motion or altering the movement to limit stress on certain joints. Even though this may not be ideal, it is better to train around pain rather than to push through it, and for individuals to stay healthy for the long term. And the last factor influencing technique is training goals. Some trainees may have other goals simultaneous to muscle growth. Most notably, some lifters may also have the goal of lifting to maximize strength of a particular lift. In this case, the strength exercises may be performed with a slightly different technique to maximize load lifted rather than to maximize the hypertrophic stimulus. This may involve lifting with a different tempo, altering range of motion, making the lift more biomechanically efficient, and taking advantage of the stretch shortening cycle. While these technique variations may not be ideal for muscle growth and may result in greater joint stress, they may be required to maximize strength goals. This is completely fine if trainees have other goals to train for, although they should understand the trade-offs involved. In this case, trainees should also be intentional with the specific goals of each lift. For example, if a trainee wants to increase their bench press 1RM, they should perform the technique which allows them to lift the most weight for the bench press specifically. However, when they perform exercises for the goal of hypertrophy, like chest flies and tricep pushdowns, technique should change to maximize muscle growth rather than to lift the most weight possible. So what practical recommendations can we conclude from this information? First, we should understand that there is no universal best technique to maximize muscle growth. While there are general principles that make technique more or less effective, slight adjustments should be made to individualize technique specifically for yourself. Trainees should use the most effective technique for them, which considers their anatomical structure and training goals. Furthermore, technique may need to be adjusted for some individuals in order to keep the joints healthy over time. Maintaining health is a priority, as this will allow us to train for years on end and produce the greatest gains over time. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.